And we got a married couple called Sriman Shyam Prabhu, followed by his wife Srimati Damayanti Didi. I'll introduce them separately. Is Shyam's there? Yeah, Shyam's there. Great. So Shyam met the devotees in July 2007 and met Gurudeva shortly thereafter in the December of that year. Took Harinam in Kartik of the following year, and then took Diksha at Vyas Puja ceremony in 2009 from Srila Gurudeva. He lived in Navadvip for 18 months, which really caught my eye. And you served the Golden Avatar School, which is an amazing school. And you also served at Srila Gurudeva's Samadhi. And you've done some of that wonderful prison seva led by Vasanti Didi. So Prabhu, warm welcome to you in Perth. Please offer your Pushpanjali. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhu. And before I start, I just wanted to thank yourself and Yashoda Aridasi and all the devotees doing this, doing these Zoom satsangs. They're really all around the world. They're having such impact. So thank you very much for that. I found it quite funny when you said that the time on the 24-hour clock was 6:45. So the name that Srila Gurudeva gave me is also my Kami name. It's Shyam Mohan, which has many meanings, but one of them is sunset. So that was the name I was given as a kid. So I found it ironic that I had the right time for me of the day for me to speak. Yeah, but Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Vanchakalpatarubhyabhyo Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. I've like I said, I spent the last year listening to the glorifications of Srila Gurudeva by so many qualified personalities. Now that it's my turn, I feel very unqualified to do so. I actually thought about backing up, but my wife told me, you've been asked to do this, so it's your seva. So with that mood, when you go to a function, you just see so many devotees offering so many wonderful big gifts, and you have some small gift, I'll take that small gift and hide it somewhere along those many wonderful larger offerings. I met Srila Gurudeva, as you said, Prabhu, very, very late during the time of his physical manifestation in this world, barely the final 3 years. I remember telling Yashoda Nanda Prabhu my story in Puri in 2015, and he said to me, "Oh, you're a JIT devotee." And when I asked what that meant, he said, "Oh, just in time devotee." So, which is very true. I met Srila Gurudeva very late, and the Sadhu's mercy comes in that way. When they're getting to the end time of their time of this world, they cast their net very wide and try and catch as many as they can. And I was one of the fortunate few that managed to be caught in that way. I had such a small time with him and such small experiences with him. It is a hard thing to reconcile, because you hear, like Jagadish Prabhu was speaking before, you hear so many wonderful stories of so many devotees having these intimate pastimes, and part of you wishes, oh, I wish I had that, but I try and think, I guess, in two ways about it. The first being that I was fortunate to meet Srila Gurudeva at all. I've met devotees in the last 10 years that would come to me and say, oh, I was going to meet your Gurudev, and I was going to go to India, but something happened, or I was going to meet Gurudev in America, but this thing happened. So I feel fortunate that I met Srila Gurudeva at all. And you hope in some way that, I guess, the lack of those experiences can drive you to try and have more of those in some way, because at the end of the day, the price of bhakti is purely the greed to attain it. My story with Srila Gurudeva is very, very closely tied to the story of how I met my wife, because I met both around the same time. My wife's actually my Vatma Pradakshika Guru, because she introduced me to Srila Gurudeva. I grew up here in Perth, in Australia, with a very typical Hindu upbringing. I had questions I didn't really have answers for. I was interested in scripture and dharma, but it got to a point where my material desires, the dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all sort of took over, and I ended up moving to Singapore. I was working there in the banking sector, and out of nowhere, I met my now wife. She had Harinam at the time from Srila Gurudeva. She was trying, I guess, to put things together in how to live a Krishna conscious life. So I met her, and after a couple of weeks, she asked me to come to the temple one day, which I thought was very unusual in terms of asking someone to go for a date to a temple, but I went, and then I kept going. And then after about 6 months, I met Srila Gurudeva for the first time. I remember Srila Gurudeva would pass through Singapore quite frequently. Given the airport and the proximity to India, he would come and then fly somewhere else. So he would come quite often to Singapore, but it was really for a day or even 12 hours sometimes. And you would find out quite late that he was coming. And we found out only 2 hours before he actually came to Singapore. So I went and I heard the class and it went completely over my head. It was the first class I'd heard, and it was the first time I'd heard someone really talking about the gopis. That the association that I'd had with devotees up to that time was very ISKCON based, which doesn't really focus on the gopis. It was more Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. But it was the first time I'd heard of the gopis, and I knew to a degree my name, my Kami name, had some link to that pastime without really understanding it. But after the program, I was introduced to Gurudev. I took Dhanavat Pranams, and I remember Srila Gurudev just sitting on an armchair. His legs were crossed on the armchair, and I was introduced to him, and I remember him just sort of turning his head slightly and just looking at me up and down, just trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And there was a bowl of fruit, so he took a pear and he passed me the pear, and that was it. It was really, at a stretch, 30 seconds, but it's something that I'll never forget, because Srila Gurudev had that ability. He would give you a moment of his time and it would stick with you forever. Gurudev could give a class to hundreds and thousands, and each person felt that he was speaking to them because he was. It's beyond our conception how such a thing can happen, but Srila Gurudev is closer to us than the air we breathe. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And just the sound of Gurudev's voice as well, of the Nitya Siddhas. There's a pastime of Srila Gaudiya Maharaj. He's a disciple of Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And so he was a Vanaprastha at this time, but he'd not gone into devotee life. And he happened to be on the Parakram boat when Saraswati Thakur was doing the original Navadip Parakram. And the boat was crossing from Mayapur to Godrum for the Parakram. So it's not on the Ganges. It was the sort of side river that the locals call Jalangi. And he was chewing some betel leaves and he spat them out into the river. And Saraswati Thakur turned to him and said, "We worship this river as Saraswati." And just Gaudiya Maharaj hearing Saraswati Thakur's voice, Atmanivedana, he completely surrendered to Saraswati Thakur. And at the next yagya, a few days later, he got Harinam Diksha and Sannyas initiation. Such was the level of his surrender. And Saraswati Thakur was notoriously, I don't want to say slow, but devotees had to quite often pass a lot of barriers, I guess, to get to that sort of level. But Saraswati Thakur gave straight away. Such was the level of Gaudiya Maharaj's surrender. And Gurudev could have that effect. There's so many stories we've heard of just someone hearing something or being spoken to or looked to, and it had such a profound effect on people. So I met Gurudev in 2007, and then in Kartik the following year, I'd gone and received Harinam, as Prabhu said, and then a couple of months later, in January 2009, I went to Malaysia to meet Gurudev, and in between that time, I had proposed to my now wife, but when I met Gurudev, I suddenly realized that I made an error. I hadn't not so much asked for permission, but I hadn't really asked for blessing to get married. And what happened at that Vyas Puja, there was so many senior sannyasis. Shamrani Didi was there. I think Didi might have been there as well. There were so many senior people that I couldn't really get to Gurudev to ask him. But I got to Sripad Madhav Maharaj, and Madhav Maharaj said, "Leave it to me." And all of a sudden, a few days later, we were waiting outside Srila Gurudev's chalet with some garlands, some bhiksha, and ourselves. And Gurudev called us in, and we actually had a very private, intimate, pseudo wedding ceremony. Well, it was a wedding ceremony where Gurudev sat down again, Gurudev on the armchair, legs in lotus position. We were sitting in front of him, kneeling, and it was so incredibly intense. I heard afterwards that Srila Gurudev had actually stopped doing sort of marriage ceremonies, but some dispensation, I suppose, was given to us. And I know that there were devotees that had asked Gurudev for some blessing and he didn't give it. And then those devotees actually ended up separating. So to receive that from Srila Gurudev was wonderful. But I remember the ceremony itself. Gurudev was sitting about 2 or 3 feet away from me, but it felt like 2 inches. It felt like he was right in our face, making us make these very deep, personal, intense promises to each other. I've not had a lot of direct association with Gurudev. I'd heard his katha and I've heard from the sannyasis, but he was telling us making us make promises to each other that he could only have known if he was there. So obviously he was there and knew us intimately and knew us to the level where the promises that we were making were very specific to our situation. It was an incredible experience. It's something that I'll never forget. We had made those promises, made offering to Gurudev, we exchanged garlands. And so Gurudev had married us, and then the next day we had there was a fire yagya for the Vyas Puja. I'd received Diksha at that time. At the end of the yagya, Damodar Maharaj was leading the yagya, and he suddenly said at the end, where is the married couple? And I was sitting right next to him because I was helping him with the yagya. I was getting Diksha. And so he called my wife over, and we had a very small, private, intimate wedding ceremony with all of these devotees. And we didn't really know anyone there, but it was such a wonderful experience to be around all of Gurudev's devotees and having that ceremony with the tying of the cloth and the walking around the fire. And it was something that was completely unexpected. All I'd wanted from Gurudev was just some sort of blessing that it was okay to take this step in my life. And he gave so much more than what I was ever expecting for that. So, and even now when we meet devotees in Malaysia where the Vyas Puja was, they're like, oh, you're the couple that Gurudev married. It's like, yeah, that's us. So it was something that a lot of people there really remembered, and it was something that was very, very special to be a part of. And I remember as well at the time, because I'd had that marriage ceremony, and then I'd had Diksha mantra at the same time, but it felt like basically I was brahmachari for about 10 minutes. And then I was made grihasta straight after. So it was almost as if Gurudev was telling me, okay, this is your ashram. This is the ashram that you're supposed to be in. So technically got thread and mantras, but was pretty much put in my place as to where he saw me and where I was supposed to be. Srila Gurudev, I remember emailing him once. I never really had a lot of correspondence with Gurudev externally, like I said, because I never met him at a lot of events. But I remember emailing him once about a decision that I had to make in 2010, like a quite personal decision that was quite important. And when he emailed me back, he never actually gave me the advice that I was looking for in terms of a decision for the problem that I had. He said, oh, in that matter, you can do what it is that you want to do, but always remember, do what is best for your bhakti. And it was actually the only piece of direct advice that I've ever received from Gurudev. The only thing I received, though, apart from the marriage ceremony, the only thing that was very specific to me. And for some reason, whenever I have a problem in life, or whenever someone else comes to me with a problem in life, it's that voice that comes to me. And I always think of that expression. I remember a couple of years ago in Perth, a devotee came up to me and he said, Prabhu, I'm 30 years old and my mother keeps telling me to get married. I'm not sure if I should get married. What should I do? And I don't know, I probably sounded like some great sadhu saying, oh, Prabhu, my guru always tells me you should do what is best for your bhakti. So I don't know if that was the most profound thing he ever heard or if it completely went over his head, but what I told him as well was if you can meet someone who is practicing Krishna consciousness and perhaps they're looking to grow in Krishna consciousness as you are, then perhaps you should marry that person. So that person actually did get married this year to someone practicing Krishna consciousness. So maybe I had no effect on him, maybe I had a great effect on him, but all I know is that when I was asked the question, Gurudev's instruction came to me, and it's something that happens quite a bit for me in my life. Srila Gurudev always talked about sincerity. In the times that I was at the festivals that I was at, it was a topic that came up quite a bit, and devotees had their own ideas, obviously listening to the katha of what he meant by sincerity, and we would often apply material considerations, being free from duplicity, being honest. There was one, it became a fairly controversial thing. I had devotees from other sanghas even coming to me and saying, oh, Gurudev is saying this about sincerity and that about sincerity. It was a topic that was going around quite a bit. And I remember at that Vyas Puja festival, one South American devotee, she came to Gurudev and said, Gurudev, you always talk about sincerity, but what do you mean when you say sincerity? And then Gurudev replied with, Anya Bilashita Shunyam Gyana Kamani Anavritam Anukulyana Krishna Anu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. So Gurudev was talking about Uttama Bhakti. He was talking about the highest possible spiritual qualification for Bhakti, whereas we were all down here talking about these material words, endeavor and try hard and all of this, because that's the place that we're coming from when we think. But Srila Gurudev is coming from this place. that's far beyond our comprehension. So we forget that sometimes. Srila Gurudeva is coming to our level to try and pull us up, but we're so caught in our own level. And if we don't endeavor to perpetually try and increase, through Anibalashita Shunyam, perpetual ardent endeavor, then we're not going to grow. Yeah, we can't be comfortable in our own. So if you're content or comfortable, then that's the most dangerous place that a devotee can be. Srila Gurudeva also had the ability to inspire those who weren't even in the line of Krishna consciousness. There was one time where I was in Singapore, I was in the ISKCON Mart. It was Srila Prabhupada's PureBhakti.Tv Mahotsav. So the devotees were having quite an ecstatic kirtan, and towards the end, it's Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. So pardon me for the lackluster singing, but they were singing Prabhupada. And what happened is that most of the devotees in Singapore have Indian ethnicity, but this Western person walked in and he looked around, and this guy was like, he was quite short. He was about 60 years old. His hair was all frazzled. He was wearing tracksuit, but it was tattered everywhere. It was just this very strange thing. He walked in, he looked around, and then he walked out straight away. And the kirtan went on, but everybody had noticed it. About 10 minutes later, he came back with a friend of his, and the kirtan at that time had turned to prasadam, so everybody was being served prasad. Some devotee in Singapore gave me 2 plates of prasad and said, "Sham, go speak to those people." Somehow I was dragged into a situation with these 2 guys I'd never met before. Like I said, they had sort of frizzy hair, tattered clothes and everything. And it asked me to just sit down with them. So I did. They were actually from America. So they were flying to India, and they'd stopped in Singapore on the stopover to fly to India. And the thing that had caught the first person's eye was Prabhupada. It wasn't so much the Krishna, Hare Krishna, it was more the Prabhupada. And he said to me, I've met Prabhupada. I've met him. So I was attracted to the sound of his name, so I came. And I started talking to him, and he had he wasn't following Krishna consciousness, but he had a lot of understanding of history. He knew Srila Prabhupada. He started talking to me about Bhagavat Maharaj, who he seemed to know, kept calling him Bhagavat. I think he'd known Maharaj before he was a sannyasi. And just kept talking about Krishna consciousness, but started growing, and he started almost coming quite close to me and talking very intimately. I think he was trying to test the marts and the societies, because he understood the politics to a degree. And then he asked me who my Gurudev was, and I said, my Gurudev actually is not an ISKCON, but his name is Srimati Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj. And suddenly he lit up and he goes, "Oh, I met your Gurudev. So I was in San Francisco, and he was walking by the river, and I went up to him, and we both held hands, and we walked down the river for 5 minutes. He was chanting. We didn't say a word. He said, I've met so many sadhus, but I will never, ever, ever forget your Gurudev." Wow. And being in that moment, it was such a wonderful thing to be a part of, because I had a feeling talking to that man that he was going to India with his friend for a spiritual parikram, but in a way, I think he'd forgotten about Krishna consciousness and devotee life, and just hearing Prabhupada's name and being reminded of Gurudev was kind of just those personalities, just reminding him, when you go to India, make sure that you're doing these things and going to Vrindavan. Because his plan was to go to Jaipur and then go north from there. I think Gurudev and Prabhupada were telling him maybe go south first rather than go this way before you go that way. So it was a genuinely wonderful thing to be a part of. And like Prabhu said, I've done a bit of seva with the prison seva and Golden Avatar Gurukul. I have a background in accounting, and I work in a bank. Devotees have a lot of abilities, but I think numbers is not necessarily one of them. But I have training as an accountant in banking. So my involvement with the prison seva is really more just keeping accounts, and just as I tell Vasanti, it's really just recording all the wonderful seva that she does. But hearing those stories of the prisoners, you can see their hunger in the letters that they write. You can see them, they feel trapped. We actually are all trapped in this world, but they can physically see the bars and the walls that they're trapped in. And they are reacting out of that. You can see the letters. Please, I've finished Bhagavad Gita. Please send me a copy of Jaiva Dharma. Please do everything you can to get in. Santi and Bimala Didi and Shamsundar Prabhu and Bhagavakanta Prabhu, what they deal with in terms of it's not as easy as you think to get into these institutions. There's the politics, there's the government, there's the religious aspect. What they do to get in there and create these connections is something that is genuinely wonderful, and you can see it changing the lives of these inmates. And it's such a wonderful service. I have a very, very small involvement in it. I just, like I said to them, I just record what they do. But to see what it is and to feel some small part of that is genuinely humbling. They do incredible seva. And as Prabhu said as well, I spent a bit of time in Navadip. So I lived there for about 1.5 years. Starting from the time we met Yashodanand and Prabhu at the Pure Bhakti Academy in 2015. The children, because when we go to India, we see a very crazy version of India. We see that sort of very thin external veneer where there's loud noises, the food is very hot and the weather's very hot, it's very intense. When you go on Parikram and you see the locals, we understand that these people are Dhambasis, they're living in the Dham, but we see the same craziness in India that we see in other places. What I found with the children is there's this very, like, as Westerners, we all have this very thick veneer, these anathas, these layers that we have to wear off to try and grow as devotees, but the children have such a small, thin veneer. Literally, you can wipe it off in one stroke. When you can do that, there's a roughness on the surface of them, and particularly Navadip is actually a rural area. So the way that we think about people that live outside the cities and have farming backgrounds, the children are quite like that as well. So they're tough and they're strong and they're very simple and practical people as well. But their ability to absorb what has been given to them is absolutely incredible. Some of the sweetest experiences that I've ever had have been associated with the children. They're genuinely really special. We try as much as we can to give them education because particularly girls in that part of the world are treated very badly. If there's a girl and a boy, they'll send the boy to school and they'll get the girl ready to marry her off when she's 15, even though the legal age in India for marriage is 18. Half of all girls in India are married by the time they're 18. So they're studying their final exams at the same time. They know that they may not have options after they study their exams. They may be sent 400 miles away to marry someone they don't know and live with a family they don't know. So it's a very intense time for these children as they grow up. And having the opportunity, they do need that material education, but we invite it with the spiritual education as well. It feels silly saying that you are teaching Dhambasis things. To a degree, you need to because they haven't been exposed to it, but really they're teaching us more through their mood and through their behavior. Whenever you need service, there's always service being done by the children. Whenever I've been to some big marts, taking the children to big marts, and then they find that there's no service, so the children automatically go to the kitchen, just very naturally, oh, they need service, we'll go to the kitchen. You know, their mood is always built around service. The mood is always built around sharing. I found at the beginning of my devotional life that you have all sorts of conceptions about people who live in the Dham because you see it from a very external place. But having spent time with the children, and Medalia and Bunty as well, who run the school, so they're disciples of Srila Gurudeva, who are roughly my age. They've been involved in Krishna consciousness for a long time, seeing the spirit and the way that they carry on. And like I said before, as devotees, we're meant to change and we're meant to grow. They face a lot of opposition in the community because the nature of change can create fear in others. Why are these things changing? But they've always been so open and responsive. And we also find as well, some of the most responsive people come from not even from sort of Hindu backgrounds, Muslim backgrounds, or the indigenous Bengali backgrounds as well. Just seeing the children grow is such a lesson to us about how devotional life is very simple. It can be very hard to follow, but the essence of it is actually very simple if we surrender ourselves to it. And sorry, just before I pass to my wife, Prabhu, I just wanted, because today is the Avirbhav of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in India. It's also the Tirobhav of Narottam Das Thakur and Bhaktivigan Bharati Maharaj. I'm not qualified to speak on any of them, but I did have one pastime on Bhaktivigan Bharati Maharaj that I did want to share. So in 2016, I'd gone to Jagannath Puri for the Pure Bhakti Academy, and I was doing some service at Vrinda Didi, and at night we would go and see Bhaktivigan Bharati Maharaj at the Chaitanya Gaudiya Mat there. And one day Vrinda Didi turned to me and said, it would be wonderful if you can get Maharaj to speak at the Gurukul. And I thought, Vrinda Didi, yes. Outside, I said, yes, Vrinda Didi, that's a wonderful idea, but inside I thought, Didi, you're mad. I have no idea how I'm going to get Maharaj to speak at the school. But she gave me the phone number of one of his personal attendants, Sundar Gopal Prabhu from Brisbane, which, because I knew him a slight bit, it was probably just enough for me to instigate that conversation. I wasn't really sure how to have a conversation with someone I didn't know, but she passed me the number of the person that I did know. So I called him and he said, Prabhu, Maharaj is not very well. You can come to Navadvip and on this day, at this time, you can come to the Mart, but I can't even promise that you'll be healthy enough to speak to you or to take visitors, but you can try. And I thought, okay, it wasn't very much that I was being offered. I understood the situation, but I kind of thought around that time, living in Navadvip at the time, the Gaur Purnima is the busiest time of the year because so many people come to Navadvip that are part of our Sangha and so many other Sanghas, and even outside Krishna consciousness, people coming for the Mahaprabhu festival or the Holi even. So what happened was that I'd sort of put it to the back of my mind, the idea of seeing Maharaj. But suddenly, I was supposed to see him at 6:30 in the evening on this particular day, and it took from where I was about an hour and a half to get to him. So it's about a 3-hour round trip. And it got to about 5 o'clock in the evening, and suddenly this voice came in my head, this very, very sattvic voice. It said, go see Maharaj. And the nature of it, it was this very profound, and I can only describe the voice as sattvic, and it just came to me. And so I went to see Maharaj, and I got there just at sort of the right time, and Sundar Gopal came out, and I went in to see Maharaj, and I invited Maharaj to come and speak to the Gurukul on our open day. We have an open day where we invite everybody to come and see the children. They have some dramas, and they have mridanga. They're very good with the mridangas. The children are very artistically inclined with drawing and singing and instruments. So we provide a lot of that for people to watch. So Maharaj said, oh, I'm not well, but I will consider, and I will let you know. So I thought, okay, that's I'll have to do for now. I had no expectation after that, but I felt that at least I'd done my duty. Says in Bhagavad Gita that all we can do is our duty, regardless of the result. So I felt that I'd done my duty, but all of a sudden, a few days later, I got a call saying Maharaj was going to come. And we were able to advertise that and let everybody know that Maharaj was coming. And normally for the open days, we only get maybe 20, 30, 50 people will come. 50 is probably larger than average. But that year, what had happened was there was certain pastimes of the Mart, certain politics where Maharaj had left the Mart and was moving to another place. And also his health wasn't well. And the entire time that he was in Navadvip, he hadn't spoken publicly, except for the time at our Gurukul. So everybody wanted to come and hear Maharaj. So we actually had over 300 people come that particular day just to hear Maharaj. And that was, to me, it just felt that, you know, Mati Vigambarati Maharaj and Gurudeva were making this arrangement together for this to happen so the devotees could come. It was such a humbling thing to be a part of. And it showed to me that they were giving their blessings to the school also. It's very hard to run Gurukuls at the best of times, but when you're in that part of the world, it's even harder. So it's a wonderful project to be a part of. And yeah, so thank you, Prabhu, for your time. Please, and everyone for your time. Please forgive me if I made any offenses. I will pass to my wife in a sec. But thank you.
Those are very beautiful and very, I felt the real personal touch to your Pushpanjali, Prabhu. And yes, the Golden Avatar School, I know some of the things that Dahlia and her husband's gone through. And it's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary school. We had them actually on Bhakti Zoom. And we had the whole school. And they're just incredible. The amount of sweetness in those kids is incredible. Before I pass on to your wife, I just wanted to highlight one point, which I think is also very important, not just for you, but for many devotees, those that you said, I called it the JIT devotee, just in time. But you said that it took about 30 seconds for Gurudev to give you that pair. Well, I'm sure you know this as an accountant and as originally a Hindu, a self-realized soul only has to look at you for one lava, which is 1/11 of a second, for complete auspiciousness, for complete liberation and beyond. So on that basis, you got 330 times that, just from that one experience, and also the corollary of that is, it's actually the Vani that's more important than the Vapu. Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada did not spend that much time with his guru. The Vani is the powerful thing, the internalization. Sometimes, I've seen it with quite a few people. Those who have gotten the Vapu, they don't make it because they get familiar. They can't quite work out. They can't continue with I don't know. For some reason, they just cannot follow the Vani, even though they've had the Vapu. So it's not necessarily any less auspicious to have more or less Vapu or Vani. It's more or less a physical association. It's up to you. It's up to each of us what we do with the Vani.
I remember once I was in a program in Singapore, and I was talking with a bunch of devotees around my age, and one of them had a mobile phone, and they were passing it to each other as we were all talking in a circle. So I asked them, who are you speaking to? And they said, oh, our guru is on the phone. And so I'm very jealous, and I've only met my guru maybe 4 or 5 times. And he said, the devotee said to me, actually, Srila Prabhupada only met his guru 4 or 5 times, so you're not in the worst company. But you're right. I guess in both of those aspects, that you only need, we measure the time, I guess as an accountant, you measure it in 6-minute increments. But it's, as you're saying, probably the wrong unit of time to measure it with.
Lawyers do the same. Thank you, Prabhu. So
Thank you, Prabhu.
We're moving over about 1 foot to Prabhu's left. Srimati Damayanti Didi, welcome. You met the devotees in Singapore in 2003, and Didi then met Srila Gurudeva in 2005 in Malaysia. I met Gurudeva in Malaysia as well. Malaysia is really hot country, very humid. And then you took Harinam. You didn't mess around. You took Harinam pretty much immediately and took Diksha in 2008. So a warm welcome, Didi, to offer your Pushpanjali. Dandavats.
Thank you. Dandavat pranams. I was wondering if I should offer my Pushpanjali first or to do my...
Whatever you're inspired to do, Didi. Bhajan first, Pushpanjali first. It's all part of the same mix.
Okay.
It's like rice and dal. Which one do you have first? You both the same time.
Okay,
what are you inspired to do?
I think I will offer my Pushpanjali first.
Okay. You might want to come closer to the microphone though. We can hear Prabhu very well, but you're a bit faint.
Yeah, I'm very shy and not a very good speaker, so.
Don't worry. So you're with family here. Just imagine you're on the sofa chatting to a friend.
Thank you, you're so kind. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmamitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhika Piratmane Shri Srimat Bhaktivedanta Narayana Iti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Guru Prashtaya Bhutale Shri Srimat Bhaktivedanta Madhava Iti Namane Gurave Guru Chandra Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Panchakalpa Taradascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I was born into a Catholic family, and as a young girl I was actually quite happy with the Catholic faith, quite happy and comfortable going to church and all that. But then as I grew older, and I started to face more challenges in my life, I started to look for happiness in all the wrong places. I took up dancing, I hung out with my friends and stayed out late and stuff like that. And then unfortunately, I also hung out with the wrong crowd. Yeah, so, and no matter how hard I tried, I still felt sad and empty. And even going to church on Sundays, I couldn't find all the answers that I had, questions to about the true purpose of my life. Why am I here? Why is there suffering? And as Catholics, we're taught not to believe in reincarnation and all that stuff. But somehow I believed in it. Something in my heart was telling me that you can't be just one life and that's it, and you either go to heaven or hell. And if you don't believe in Jesus, you're damned for life, for eternity. So I didn't believe that. Then as I was going through an especially distressing period in my life in around 2002, I met a Hare Krishna devotee from Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, and he he started to speak about Krishna, and he started reading from the Bhagavad Gita and doing some Mahamantra, some simple kirtans, and I was very attracted to that. I was attracted especially to the music and the kartals, and then I started to go for more programs. I started reading the Bhagavad Gita and some of Srila Prabhupada's books, and that was kind of like the turning point for me. I was like, finally my questions are being answered, and everything started to make much more sense. And I started to go for ISKCON programs as well, because they were very regular, and I liked that. And in due course of time, I also met two of Srila Gurudev's disciples, Tarani Didi and Krishna Priya Didi. And then one day in 2005, they asked me, "Oh, do I want to go and meet their Gurudev in Malaysia?" He was going to Malaysia, but not in Singapore for some reason. He wasn't able to come to Singapore. So I said, yeah, I would love to. At that time, I actually have never even seen a picture of Gurudev or read any of his books or anything, but I wanted to see him. And then when I got to Malaysia, actually before I met Gurudev, I actually met Srimati Shamarani Didi. And as soon as I saw her, she held out her arms and gave me a big warm hug. And I saw her beautiful paintings, and I was like, wow, they're so beautiful. And my favorite painting was, I think at that time she had just finished Manini Radha, if I'm not wrong. And that was like, instantly, that was like, I got so attracted to it. I was like just crying and crying. And so actually Gurudev wasn't well, so he was supposed to give class, but he wasn't able to. So Shamarani Didi gave class instead. And during her class, I was so amazed by what she was speaking. I felt like as if she was speaking about my life. I remember she said something about looking for happiness, how it's like I can't remember the word she used, but it was like as if you're breaking your hand, knocking your hand against a glass, something like that. And yeah, so basically it's not possible to find happiness here. And I was like, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so then I got I think it was the next day that I got the chance to meet Gurudev at the devotee's house that he was staying in. Brinda Didi was there as well. I think Gokul Prabhu was there as well, and some other devotees. So when Krishna Priya was talking to Gurudev, I was actually beside her, and I was thinking, Gurudev is not even looking at me. He's not even talking to me. I felt a little bit ignored. And then the next moment, Gurudev said, "Who is this girl?" Yeah, then my heart melted. And I was fortunate actually in this personal meeting with Gurudev that there were not so many devotees there. So I was able to actually get quite up close and personal to Gurudev. I actually asked him, Gurudev, I heard some people, some devotees saying some bad things about you, some negative things about you. Then Gurudev just said, "Do you see anything negative about me?" And then I said, "No." And that was it for me. I didn't have to ask anymore. Yeah. And at that time, I also felt like I didn't want to waste any more time. I wanted to take Harinam from Gurudev. So Krishna Priya, Tarini Didi helped me. Krishna Priya lent me her gopi dress and helped me to put on tilak and stuff and all that, and got ready for Harinam. And when Gurudev, when he gave me my chanting beads and my neck beads, he asked me, will you give up meat? At that time, I had started to be vegetarian, but I hadn't gone off meat completely, as I was still living with my parents in my parents' house, and it was quite hard for me for like a drastic change like that. So I was going off gradually, and I also didn't know how to explain to my parents. But I told Gurudev yes, and then Gurudev told me, you have to be strong, and his arms were like that. You have to be strong, and then he also said he advised me to hide Krishna consciousness from my parents, but to not upset them, and that was exactly what I did. But in my heart, I was thinking, oh, how did Gurudev know my family situation? I didn't even tell him anything about it. How did he know my family was going to object? So I was like, wow, really, Gurudev knows my heart. I was really, really touched. And, so after meeting Srila Gurudev, things in my life started to fall into place. Initially, I was worried about how I was going to practice Krishna consciousness, how I was going to imbibe it into my life without upsetting my family, and how was I going to go to church or go to programs or both or what? I was confused. But then Gurudev arranged everything. In 2007, I met my husband. So things started to get easier.
Yeah, it was quite funny actually. Sorry to interrupt, but because I'm half Indian ethnically, she started doing more Indian things, but her family thought, oh, that's fine. She's going out with Syam, so she must do more Indian things. So externally to them, they had their answer to what was going on. So it seemed to be enough for them at the time.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different language, huh?
Yeah.
So I actually didn't have that many personal meetings with Srila Gurudev, but one of the most memorable ones that I had was Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja, like my husband mentioned, in 2009 in Desaru in Malaysia. At that time, we were not married yet, but I actually we both took part in a drama that Charu Chandrika Didi had directed, and in fact, Chandramukhi played the role of Bharat Maharaj, how he became attached to a deer and how he became a deer in his next life, and both my husband and I played the roles of palanquin holders of the king. So it was really nice to be part of my first drama ever that Gurudev had watched, and it was really, really, very nice experience. I remember after the drama had finished, Gurudev as he was walking out of the hall, through one narrow corridor, I saw that he was looking at all of us, and then somehow in that one moment, he looked straight into my eyes. I remember that so well, and I can't describe the feeling. It's like just indescribable. I felt so much joy and bliss that Gurudev, I felt like as if he was looking straight into my heart and soul, and he knows the true me. Not just my external, but my heart and my soul. And also at that time, when Gurudev married us, I remember he was very, very stern, yet very, very stern face, and he told us to never divorce like that. And he also made us make promises to each other. Like I think it was for him not to treat me as a maid servant.
What was that last thing?
I remember Gurudev instructed my husband not to treat me like a maid servant.
Oh. Has he done well? Has he done well like that?
Pretty well.
Well enough, apparently.
Then in 2015, in 2015, my husband and I, maybe just backtrack a few years. So in 2010, we legally got married and moved to Perth. And actually, I felt it was also Gurudev's hand in this decision, that moving to Perth was more favorable for my bhakti, because back in Singapore, I was in a very stressful job, working in a bank, and I didn't have any time to cook, any free time. So it was really, really stressful. Yeah. Then in 2015, my husband and I decided to leave everything in Perth to live in Navadvip, and it wasn't an easy decision to make, because there was a lot of uncertainties, like my husband had to give up his job, we had to sell our house and all that. But
a big decision.
at the same time, it was also very exciting, because we were able to do so much more saver for the school, Golden Avatar. And also, we hadn't planned it, but at the same time, Gurudev's Samadhi Mandir was being constructed. So we were able to take part in some small saver in like moving bricks and stuff like that, helping Pramananda Prabhu to move bricks. And also I was fortunate to do some painting saver of the motifs.
Beautiful.
So that was really, really special. And I also...
Didi, sorry to interrupt, but how long do you need for your bhajan?
7 minutes.
Okay, great. So you need to wrap this up in a minute or two.
Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that Gurudev's mercy is boundless and limitless. When I lost my father to cancer around this time last year, I booked a flight to see him when the doctors told him he didn't have much time to leave. I booked a flight to see him in Singapore, and I managed to put a tulsi mala around his neck, gave him tulsi leaves and all that. Actually, my father had no objections to. We didn't speak very much, but during his last days, he did tell me that he had whatever that I'm practicing, he had no objections, and as long as I'm happy. So that was really, really nice. And I just wanted to say that I also brought Gurudev's Charanamrit to Singapore. So Gurudev is so merciful that he also sprinkled mercy onto my whole family, my father, my mother, and my siblings as well. Yeah. So just wanted to end it by saying that Srila Gurudev has completely changed my life, and he was so sweet, so loving, so merciful, and without him, I don't know where I will be today. I pray to all of you to please bless me that my faith and Nishta in Gurudev will grow stronger and stronger, and that I'm able to please him more and more and attain Radha Dasyam in this very lifetime. Jai Srila Gurudev.
Hi, Dandavats.
Damayanti wanted to sing Guru Charana Kamala Bhajaman. So if you have the small yellow book, it's page 359.
Okay, beautiful. It's not. Can't hear it. You need to come much closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that better, Prabhu?
We'll play a bit and I'll tell you. No, Prabhu. For some reason, we could hear you very well. So whatever position you were in, Prabhu, if she could be in the position you were in, exact position would be fine. I don't know how it's set up, if you're doing computer or phone or whatever, but you need to be right close. Very good. No. No, I can't hear. Can anyone else? Raghava, can you hear? It's not working. Prabhu, I can't tell you what to do from here, but that's not working.
Okay, that's okay then.
It's okay, Prabhu.
If you go into the audio settings and turn off the noise cancellation, you need to turn the noise cancellation off.
Oh, thanks, Gokul.
In the audio settings. So go into where it says mute or your audio, go audio settings, and then there's a suppress background noise. Turn that on to low.
Oh, low. Okay. Yeah. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Jana
It's gone again.
Bhajaman. Jana Kamala
Gokul, any other ideas? Because I can't hear still. Not working.
Yeah, we tried everything we can here, Prabhu, but we might just call it a quick. Apologies for that.
If you sing without the harmonium, then it should be
That's
fine.
a good idea. That's a great idea. Can you try and do that, Didi, without the harmonium?
Yeah, sure. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Kripa Bina Nahi koi sadhana bhav. Bhajamana bhaja anukshan. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Milita nahi asa tula bhajanama. Brahmata hu chauda bhuvan. Kisi ko maliti hai aho bhagya se. Hari bhakto ke darshan. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Krishna Kripa Ki Ananda Murati. Dina Jana Karuna Nidan. Bhakti Bhava Prem Dina Prakashata. Shri Guru Patita Pavan. Shri Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Guru Jana Kamala Bhajaman. Shruti Smriti Itihas Purana Namahi. Kinos Pasta Brahman. Tanamana mala bhajaman. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Dandava Pranams, Damayanti. Thank you for your very sweet offering, and also thank you for persevering with the kirtan. I know that's quite nerve-wracking when things don't work technically, so well done for staying in there.
Thank you.
You said a lot of very sweet things, but two things really stood out for me. One was when you talked about how in the Catholic Church they've completely eliminated any chance of reincarnation, and that's always baffled me. I remember meeting a girl on the street when I was doing Sankirtan. It was actually just prior to Sankirtan. She was trying to convert me to Christianity. And I just asked her, what happens if I was born in 500 AD in South Africa, where they'd not heard of Christ? Am I damned? I mean, what's going on? I mean, and I said to her, honestly, if God is so without mercy that we don't even have a second chance, I'm not even sure if I like that God. I'm just going to be a rebel, you know? It just didn't make any sense to me. No sense at all. And the other thing that you said at the end, which was very profound actually, and I can, you know, it really put a kind of a stone in my body. It said, without him, where would I be today? I can't imagine. You said that about yourself. Same for me. I can't imagine what would my life be if it wasn't for Gurudev. I can't imagine. It would just be just such a waste of time. I'm so grateful to him and grateful to you for reminding me how grateful I am to him. Hare Krishna.